Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking something really crucial, though maybe a bit behind the scenes usually. It's the global market for generators in healthcare. Yeah, we're talking about that essential infrastructure, the stuff that keeps hospitals, clinics, you name it, powered up. Especially, when things get critical and every second counts. Our guide for this is a pretty comprehensive report from Cognitive Market Research. It breaks down all the key figures, the growth trends, starting back in 2021 and projecting right out to 2033. So our mission, like always, is to pull out the most important bits for you, give you a shortcut to getting up to speed on this really vital sector. Let's dive in.
Yeah, it's easy to think of generators as just, well, equipment, right? But in healthcare settings, they are literally lifelines. And understanding this market, it's not just about tracking sales figures. It's really about appreciating how absolutely necessary resilience and continuous power are for modern healthcare. We're about to get into some pretty significant growth figures globally, and they really highlight just how critical this whole infrastructure is becoming.
That's a really good way to put it. Okay, so let's start with the big picture, the global market trajectory. Back in 2021, this market was valued at nearly $2.83 billion. And the growth forecast is pretty substantial. It's projected to climb to almost $3.3 billion by 2025, and then push further to over $4.45 billion by 2033. So that works out to a steady global compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 3.852% over that whole forecast period.
3.852%. For a market as fundamental as this one, that steady CAGR actually says quite a lot. It points to this consistent underlying demand. It's not like some other sectors that might see wild swings. It really reflects, I think, the continuous expansion, the modernization, maybe even the increasing complexity of healthcare infrastructure around the world. We're basically seeing a foundational market grow because, well, facilities are constantly being built or expanded or upgraded, and reliable power, that's just non-negotiable. So it's not just growth, it's essential stability for a critical industry.
Excellent. Stability, yeah, but definitely trending upwards. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. Regional deep dive, starting with North America. This region had a pretty significant market value, over $1.13 billion back in 2021. And it's projected to reach nearly $1.7 billion by 2033. That's growing at a solid 3.434% CAGR. Now, within North America, no surprise, the United States leads the segment. By quite a margin, actually. This market is projected to go from almost $1 billion in 2021 to over $1.4 billion by 2033. But interestingly, look at Canada. It's showing a really robust growth rate, 4.382% AGRDR, actually outpacing the U.S. rate there. And Mexico is contributing significantly too, with a 3.656% CAGR.
Right, that slightly higher growth rate for Canada is definitely worth noting. I mean, the U.S. is obviously the giant in terms of market size, but Canada's faster pace, it could indicate maybe a focused push on upgrading older healthcare infrastructure, or perhaps new investments driven by, population growth or expanding services in certain areas. But overall, North America seems like a mature market, yet still showing consistent, predictable investment in critical power. It's about maintaining and incrementally improving what's already a pretty established system.
Okay, good points. Let's shift across the Atlantic now, look at Europe. So the European market was valued at nearly $665 million in 2021, and it's expected to grow to almost $1 billion by 2033, moving along at a 3.452% CAGR. Pretty similar overall rate to North America, actually, but here's where you see some interesting differences within the region. Germany seems to be leading the growth chart. It's projected to jump from over $141 million in 2021 to over $226 million by 2033. That's a strong 4.093% CAGR, a real indicator of investment there. Now contrast that with Russia, much more modest growth projected, around 1.89% CAGR. And then you've got other major European players like the UK, France, Italy. They show consistent kind of moderate growth, generally hovering between, say, 2.9% and 3.8% CAGR. We also have figures here for Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the rest of Europe category, all showing varied but generally positive growth trends.
Yeah, that contrast, particularly between Germany and Russia, is quite striking, isn't it? Germany's strong performance probably reflects its advanced healthcare system, and like you said, likely ongoing investment in modernization, resilience. Russia's slower pace might hint at, well, different economic priorities or maybe a less dynamic phase of healthcare infrastructure development right now. So what we're seeing across Europe isn't really a uniform picture. It's more like varying investment climates, maybe different approaches to energy reliability in their healthcare sectors. You have to remember each country has its own specific context driving these numbers.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, let's pivot now to the Asia-Pacific region, APAC. The report specifically highlights its strong performance, started at over $636 million in 2021, and it's projected to climb to an impressive $1.12 billion by 2033. Now, check this, CAGR, 4.847%. That's the highest regional CAGR we've discussed so far. Within APAC, China leads in sheer market value, that's clear. But the real standout in terms of growth rate is India. The report calls India among the fastest growing. It's set to leap from about $93.5 million in 2021 to over $180 million by 2033. And that boasts the highest CAGR of any single country in this whole report, 5.647%. Other key markets like Japan, South Korea, they also show solid growth, generally over 4%. Singapore's up there too, over 5%. Southeast Asia as a segment also very strong at over 5.3%. So it seems like widespread expansion across the region. Australia and Taiwan are growing steadily too.
Oh, absolutely. The dynamism in APAC is undeniable. That significant growth, especially in places like India and China, it really mirrors much bigger trends, doesn't it? You've got massive population growth, rapid urbanization, a rising middle class that's demanding better access to quality healthcare. So this isn't just about, swapping out old generators. It's often about building entirely new hospitals, new clinics, specialized centers, and at a really unprecedented speed. The need for reliable power there is just amplified by these huge development plans and this rapidly expanding healthcare footprint. It's a massive growth area.
Definitely sounds like it. Okay, let's cover the rest of the world now. South America, the Middle East, and Africa. Starting with South America, also showing strong growth potential. Figures projected to go from nearly $170 million in 2021 to over $277 million by 2033. That's a 4.152% CAGR. Brazil leads the market in value, but Argentina actually shows particularly strong growth within the region, outpacing Brazil's rate with a 4.772% CAGR. Colombia, Peru, Chile, and the rest of South America are all showing solid growth too. Okay, now over to the Middle East. This market is set to expand from over $121 million in 2021 to nearly $197 million by 2033. Another healthy KGR at 4.066%. Saudi Arabia is leading the way there, but Turkey and the UAE also show particularly robust growth rates, well over 4%. UAE actually hitting 4.6%. Egypt and Qatar show steady growth as well. And finally, Africa. It's projected to expand from just over $104 million in 2021 to nearly $167.5 million by 2033. The CAGR here is 3.465%. South Africa holds a leading market share and shows strong growth within the continent, around 4%. Nigeria is also showing significant expansion at over 3.6%. The rest of Africa shows growth too, though at a slightly lower rate.
What's really striking across these three very diverse regions, South America, the Middle East, Africa, is this pervasive upward trend. And often, as you pointed out, at CAGRs that are actually higher than some of the more established markets we looked at earlier, even with different rates between specific countries, the overall direction is clearly growth. It just reinforces how global this market is, driven by very similar underlying needs for reliable power and healthcare, really regardless of the specific geography or economic situation. It really underscores that keeping critical healthcare services running is, well, it's a universal priority, especially in regions going through rapid development and major infrastructure upgrades.
So, okay, we've seen all these consistent growth figures pretty much everywhere across the globe. What does it all mean? What are the core reasons driving this continuous expansion?
The report really boils it down to two main factors. First, just the rising demand for healthcare infrastructure itself. We see that especially in emerging economies. And second, kind of linked, are increasing concerns about power outages globally. Yeah, and those two factors are absolutely critical to understanding why this market isn't just ticking along, it's really thriving. I mean, take the demand for healthcare infrastructure. It's directly tied to things like global population growth, more people moving to cities, urbanization, and just, general improvements in living standards in many places. As more people need access to quality healthcare, more facilities get built or expanded or modernized. And every single one needs reliable backup power. And we're not just talking basic clinics anymore. It's highly specialized hospitals, advanced diagnostic gear, complex surgical suites, life support systems. None of that can afford even a momentary power flicker. And then you add the power outage concerns. We're seeing more frequent, more severe extreme weather events, partly due to climate change, right? That puts huge strain on power grids. But even in developed countries, you've got aging grids that are struggling to keep up with increasing demand anyway. A power outage in a hospital, it's not just an inconvenience. It can literally be life or death. It disrupts surgeries, affects ventilators, compromises patient safety across the board. So this vulnerability makes generators just an indispensable investment. It's almost like an insurance policy for continuous, uninterrupted patient care. It's truly a foundational piece of any resilient healthcare system today.
And there you have it. I mean, what we've walked through today clearly shows the generator market in healthcare is set for consistent, pretty robust growth right through 2033. And it's all driven by these absolutely essential, non-negotiable needs.
Exactly. And, considering how much more reliant healthcare is becoming on technology, everything from AI diagnostics to robotic surgery, and thinking about the growing vulnerability of power grids pretty much everywhere. It does raise an interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. What further innovations or maybe policy changes might be needed, not just in generators maybe, but in things like energy storage or overall grid resilience? How do we ensure this critical infrastructure can actually meet the escalating demands of healthcare in the future?
That is a really thought-provoking question to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope you'll keep exploring how these foundational technologies really enable the critical services that shape all our lives.